BYD is the largest of the EV manufacturers in China, which means it's the most in bed with the CCP. I think the subtext that this tells you is that the CCP views Tesla's ride-hailing technology as, if not superior, at least unique and uniquely valuable. And so they want to be able to keep as close of an eye on it as possible, incorporate it as much as possible, so that they can learn how to replicate this domestically in China. This is a very interesting and complex topic.
It's an important one, right? Because BYD is one of the largest automakers. They're very successful in China, whether they're profitable or not, but they're selling like crazy, multiple vehicle segments, and then they're going global. And so now they announced with God's Eye, they're going to install some sort of ADAS in all of their car segments, including the ones that are small. So this is Stella Li, and she's actually they call her senior vice president in China, executive vice president in China for BYD, but she's the president of the US division for BYD. And so she said this in an interview: China is more open to foreign business than the West. BYD pledges to work with rival Tesla to combat petrol cars. And then it's this paragraph down here, which she said China, so she didn't say BYD, but China is willing to share key technologies in EVs and autonomous driving with foreign companies despite trade tensions. What did you take about this particular statement before we go to the rest of her comments?
Yeah, there's a reason that this is the dynamic that's going on. You have to have eyes wide open when you hear statements like this from companies from China, because I know that you, Herbert, have had Michael Dunn on your show as well, and then Farzad and I have had a couple of interviews with him. And when you look at the history of these American car companies doing business with China, in China, what you realize is that they love to talk about win-win business with American companies. But when they say win-win, they take us for being naive fools, which we often are. And what they are thinking is, hey, this is a win-win business strategy for us. China will win twice, and the American company will lose. So the general playbook that they use here is they want to do a partnership with an American company, and they want to learn everything from the American company. They want to extract all of the intellectual property that's necessary, and the experience necessary to where they can then replicate that technology on their own. And once they have learned all that they have learned and acquired everything that they feel like they needed to acquire, then there will be a shift in the relationship. They are very, very conscious of leverage in partnerships, and they will act like the weaker partner, which they are from a technological standpoint, as they enter into a relationship like this. But they have a long-term strategy and plan to flip the tables of that leverage over the long term. And once they have done that, the host company that they used to begin with will end up feeling the brunt of very fierce competition and changing political dynamics within the company. So we've seen this, for example, with all of the Western automakers made a lot of money in China for a long time when they first got started there, whether it was GM, whether it was Mercedes, Volkswagen, all of these Western brands came into China. The Chinese offered up their market, and it was just irresistible to these companies. But they had to do these joint ventures with Chinese companies, and these Chinese companies learned everything about how to make cars from these Western automakers, and they built up their local supply chain. And now what you see is that every single one of those Western car companies has faced fierce competition from other, like the intellectual property that they had in China didn't stay confined to that one company that they're in a joint venture with. That person that they're in a joint venture with is used to then transfer that knowledge and information to the entire competitive ecosystem in China. And then you find yourself competing with 100 other companies. And they've all, like, the profitability in China for all of these companies has gone to almost zero or less than zero. And people are having to pull back. And so the thing that was for a short time the most profitable business segment in their entire companies is now actually something where they're losing money year on year. And that was not an accident. That was the plan from the get-go for this business relationship. And so they understand that we like short-term profits, and they use these carrots to lure us into a trap to then be able to outcompete us in the long run in technologies that they view are strategically important for the country. So I am 0% surprised that a Chinese company wants to do a partnership like this with Tesla. Tesla's obviously got the best advanced driver assistance technology. And this is going to make the calculus for Elon very, very interesting, because they know what it is that Tesla and Elon are trying to do. This language is specifically meant to appeal to Elon. Let's go ahead and try to take gas cars down. Let's put EVs against gas cars. It does align with the mission in those ways, but Elon has to know that over the long term, they're definitely going to try to, like, any technology partnership that they have with BYD, expect all of that IP then to get transferred to every other Chinese automaker in relatively short order, and to be facing fierce competition from them all over the globe. And so, does he want to enter into a partnership like that? Maybe, maybe not. The thing that Elon has going for him is that they are continuing to iterate rapidly across the entire business. And so their pace, Elon doesn't believe in moats. He says the only real moat is pace of innovation. And so as long as they continue to maintain that culture and that ethos, they should be able to at least keep pace with, if not stay ahead of, all of this competition that they would face from China. And that's just not the case for, the legacy automakers, that they didn't have a pace of innovation. Like, they had this IP that they had built up over many, many decades. And once the Chinese automakers understood how to do what they do, they weren't changing what they do to improve it fast enough to stay ahead. So that's it. It's a very interesting and very complex set of dynamics at play.
Yeah, I think what's happening here is BYD wants to get into the US, and they know that there's trade tensions. They know that US won't let them in. And so they're saying, hey, we're willing, China's willing to share key technologies in EVs and autonomous driving with foreign companies. So they're saying, maybe partner with us, get our tech, get us into the US. Our common enemy is the internal combustion engine. We need to work together. When she's talking about, she pledged to work with rival Tesla to combat petrol cars, while insisting that Beijing was more open to foreign business than the West is. I don't know if that's also potentially a threat.
I think that statement is a reference to Chinese companies invite Western companies into the Chinese market more often than Western countries invite Chinese companies into the Western markets. But that's because we've observed this exact dynamic, and we understand that, most of the time, partnerships with these Chinese companies do not work out as win-win partnerships over the long term, that these are strategic partnerships that they view through a very anti-competitive lens over the long run, and that they are trying to extract value at our expense in ways that are not conducive to free trade. They're not conducive to free markets. They can try to make it sound like they're this innocent entity in all this that's more, more virtuous than Western companies. But it's a ploy. That's not real. It's not true.
Well,
And
yeah, so
people need
I
to be
guess this
aware.
is a good statement. The government will support you. They'll work with you to allow any technology to be realized. Yeah, I get what you're saying, but the concern would be that they would go completely opposite and just shut out foreign companies that come to China. They're still trying to negotiate here. So that last month BYD introduced their version of smart driving functions called God's Eye. We've covered that at length. It's going to be made available no cost to most of its models, but it's very complicated. It's like 3 different kinds of suites, depending on the 3 different segments of cars, the low cost, the middle cost, and the high premium cars. It will have LiDAR. They're going to cover the cost of these multiple radars and sensors.
Yeah, I don't think they have the technical vision or instincts that Elon has to know which of these things is going to work or not, and so they're just going to try anything and everything, and whatever works the best they'll move forward with. So this could evolve, and if they can get vision to really work well, maybe they'll abandon all of these other things. This is much more of a spray and pray shotgun approach to let's try everything, and whatever works the best, then we'll double down on that in the future.
Yeah, people are saying, oh my God, they're leaders now in self-driving. No, what this was recognizing that if they don't say that they have some sort of ADAS system, then it's table stakes. All cars need to have advanced ADAS. And now that they say, okay, we're going to have it, but it's nowhere, there's no proof here that in any way that this has solved autonomous driving at all. Yeah, so that's their point that she made. And then the other one was that this is, her plans. So she confirmed that BYD had no plans to introduce electric vehicles in the US, right? Which, of course, now that Trump has won, she knows that the policy is to not let cars made in Mexico to just go in without tariffs. In fact, they've implemented the tariffs in Mexico and Canada. So that's why BYD has been made on BYD's plans to build a plant in Mexico. They were about to, then they pulled off, and similar to what Tesla did. She said she was not concerned about a global slowdown in the EV transition as a result of Trump's policies. So obviously, it's still very much electric vehicles is here to stay. Why are people still choosing the EV? Because it's a better car, it's a smarter car, it's higher quality. So that's good to hear that. Anything here that you thought was surprising?
No, not at all. Like I mentioned earlier, this is the position that I expect the Chinese automakers and BYD specifically to take. BYD is the largest of the EV manufacturers in China, which means it's the most in bed with the CCP. I think the subtext that this tells you is that the CCP views Tesla's ride-hailing technology as, if not superior, at least unique and uniquely valuable. And so they want to be able to keep as close of an eye on it as possible, incorporate it as much as possible, so that they can learn how to replicate this domestically in China. And just understanding the way, the art of war thought process in business that the CCP and Chinese industry has, this is right on brand for what I would expect from them. And like I said, that's why I would caution Elon and Tesla to enter into these negotiations with eyes wide open on all of these dimensions, which I'm sure that they do. Like, Tom Zhu, Grace Tao, they understand these things very well. This is not going to be surprise or news to Elon or Tesla management. But this is something that I think a lot of the Tesla community and just the broader Western consumers don't understand about the dynamics of these business relationships.
I do think that BYD is willing to partner with Tesla. They already are partners for batteries. And I think that they're just trying to figure out, how do I get into the US? How do I go global if I partner with you, Tesla? But China has allowed Tesla to release full self-driving, and it is being well received by the Chinese testers and the experts out there. They're being shocked at how good it is. For a year or two now, we kept hearing everybody saying, don't Don't underestimate the Chinese autonomy. They're so far ahead of Tesla. Yeah, do not underestimate them. But no, they're not that far ahead of Tesla. We're seeing over and over again people saying, "Hey, I've compared it directly with Huawei."
Funny that, you know, there's such a big overlap between the people that all think that Tesla is doing the wrong thing because they don't have LiDAR and the people that think China is ahead in full self-driving. It's because they believe in LiDAR, and China's doing more stuff with LiDAR. And so,
and they're trying to get out of it too. That's the thing though, right?
Yeah.
We keep hearing one company after another, including Huawei, by the way. They just announced 6 months ago that they're moving to neural nets, and many companies are dumping LiDAR, but people still think, okay, so
self-driving is an intelligence problem. It has always been an intelligence problem, and it will always be an intelligence problem. So if you have the intelligence to drive, do you need laser beams that shoot out of your eyes and come back to tell you exactly where all the things are when you drive? I don't think so. So, you know, that's like really as simple as it comes down to.